All right, Grasshoppers, everything's all right. Everybody settle down. It's okay. Allie's back. I know we missed her for 2 weeks now, but everything's fine. She's here. We will get educated today on many different things. Allie, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so sorry I was gone. It's been a busy couple weeks on the road, actually.
You know, it was like when they had the NHL lockout in 04, 05. You know, they missed the whole season. And when the NHL finally came back, everybody was so excited they forgot all about the lockout. That's
04, 05? What were they doing? What happened?
Labor, they were fighting to the NHL Player Association did not want to have a salary cap. The league wanted a salary cap, and missed the whole season. Yeah, actually,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was still an agent at that time, and Bob Goodenow was the head of our Players Association, and he's a bit of a crusty guy, and he was very honest with everybody. His plan was to fight the salary cap and take. He thought it was going to take 2 years, no hockey, which. And I remember sitting in the meetings, and I admire him for I really didn't like him too much, but I admire him for a lot of things he did for the player. And he was very honest. And he said this, and he said it several times. This could take 2 years, and probably will take 2 years.
But isn't there a salary cap?
There's a salary cap. Okay. In the end, the salary cap hasn't really been a bad thing. The revenues continue to go up, more because the business model is much more stable now for the owners. So they've got franchises coming in all the time, and. The one thing the players don't like is this escrow system. So they really can't be guaranteed what the revenues will be during the season. They have it based on past history. They have a pretty good idea. So basically it's a 50-50 split. So if it's $5 billion, there's some expenses are taken out. They split that 50-50. Then it's divided amongst the 32 teams. And then the problem is, though, to guarantee that the league gets their share of it, they depending on where the revenues are, they keep money out of each player's check every 2 weeks when they get their money, a certain amount. Like it's usually 10 to 15%. If the revenues are where they're supposed to be, they're refunded that money at the end of the year. If not, then there's a prorated portion that stays with the owner. So,
well, it's complicated. I really had no idea all of that going on.
Yeah, the players don't like it, but there's really. I mean, I'm assuming there's probably another creative way of doing it, but it's to guarantee that it's really a 50-50 split. They have to do that kind of thing. But the players, again, salaries have continued to go up. I don't know what the average salary is now, but there's players, making, I think Connor McDavid's at $12, $13, $14 million he's at. So a lot of guys signed this year. A lot of defensemen, the top-notch defensemen signed for about $9.5 million a year on multi-year deals. So
what's the lowest you would really get paid? And I realize there's NHL, and then there's people who are like they're drafted, but they're not quite. I'm going to sound really stupid.
That's right. So there's entry-level contracts. So most players that come in like 18 and 19 years old sign a 3-year contract. That's the max they can sign. They have to sign a 3-year contract. Sometimes a player that gets older, I think at 20, it may drop down to 2 years, 20 or 21 drops down to 2 years.
Okay.
They're really limited. I think that salary now is limited to be at $900,000, something in that range.
But it's very good money. It's not like, minimum wage.
No, it's but the minimum salary in the league right now, I think, is like $750,000, something like that. So
do they get like medical insurance and things like that?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay. Totally. Yeah, their insurance is top of the line through the Players Association. They're taking care of all the medical bills and everything, all taken care of by the teams. The travel, first class travel, everything. They're really cheap. Wow. You go back to like my first year in the NHL, it was a long time ago. It was 81. My salary was $60,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I had a $25,000 signing bonus. But to me, that was I hit the lottery. That's the way I felt.
Yeah. Well, interesting.
So salaries have gone up again. The league, Gary Bettman, who heads up the Players Association, heads up the league, takes a lot of heat sometimes. But when he started 20-some years ago, the revenues league-wide were, I think, around $700 million. Now they're, I think they're at $5 billion now. They're going to be. The pandemic may slow that down. So he's done a great job from the business end, for the owners, for the players. And again, it's a 50-50 split, so it's more of a partnership now.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And all of this is fascinating to me because COVID obviously affects the way sports and the arts have operated. It affects the bottom line. It has the change and the restrictions, and whether or not fans can even come has really changed the landscape probably. And I to be honest with you, I kind of credit the NHL and some other organizations that I don't follow as well for helping to figure out how we move back into normal life.
Yep.
And it was just interesting to watch the NHL stadium start to fill up with fans, and to watch, like you and I talked about a couple of times, like, is it safe? Is it not? And then we had the colleges starting with football games, and what does that look like? It takes a few people who are really comfortable, like nail biting their way through some tough decisions and, doing the risk calculations and trying to figure out, how do we do this? How do we inform people? How do we structure the event so that we minimize risk, but we still are honest about the risk? And what responsibility is it for the attendee to manage their own personal risk versus, the event management? So, and then of course, when you think about event management, you think about the terrible Astro World casualties.
Yes.
It's hard to do.
Yeah. Well, in Madison Square Garden, like and I think it's citywide in New York City, you can't enter unless you've got a vaccine. You have to, so the attendance is down a little bit at Madison Square Garden. Some people think it's the vaccination part of it. Mm-hmm. Other people think that inside, and it may change again, but a lot of people have maybe changed the way they lead their lives too. They maybe fix up their homes better. They're more of an entertainment centered home. So instead of going to someplace to watch a game, they'll watch it from home. But it's at the same time, Madison Square Garden is a fantastic place. There's a lot of energy in it and everything. And I've been to a couple of games recently, and it's pretty much back to normal again. Not as full as it had been, but as far as the atmosphere of people interacting, they're not wearing masks again because they're all, I guess, vaccinated. So, yeah, it is interesting that there are still some locations you go to where it doesn't feel like it's quite back to normal. But like you go into Manhattan and the city, it just seems like it's maybe not as packed as it had been in the past, but yeah, it's back to normal, really. Okay, so we need to do a little introduction here. It's been 2 weeks in case people don't remember. ABC Medical Writing is Allie's company. She's a fantastic mother, wife. Her husband has served our country for over 20 years in the Navy. Thank you very much for that. Two fantastic sons that are the kings of pull-ups and hockey players. Allie's famous for arranging fitness routines in the parking lot of the hockey arenas now. So it's all good.
And now in front of medical clinics, if there's 40-minute waits at the pharmacy, I'm sure that I'm on somebody's social media feed from yesterday. I was so irritated yesterday.
So what did you do? Get down and start doing push-ups or what?
I was doing burpees in front of the Branch Medical Clinic on base.
I know we laugh about it, but I think that is fantastic because everybody's always sitting around all the time waiting for something. Why not get some exercise in?
No, it's maddening from a process standpoint, and so that makes my anxiety and my stress go up because you see that there's a 40-minute wait to check in and tell someone you're there, which could have been done with the barcode on the back of my ID, which was actually done, but I still have to wait for 40 minutes to in person then go up and say I'm here. Wow. And then I go and wait another 50 minutes for the prescription to be filled. So I won't name any places, but it was just process changes drive me crazy, especially when they end up condensing and collapsing and heaping risk upon risk for people who are already at high risk. And so, we have older folks, retirees who are getting their maintenance medications from the pharmacy, and they can only go to 3 pharmacies instead of, I actually don't know how many there were previously, but they were collapsed into only 3 where they can refill their prescriptions. Wow. And these folks, you don't want them falling off their prescriptions. You want them to stay on their medications, their maintenance medications, because it's good for heart health and everything else that they're managing, hypertension. And we're making it harder for them. They have to sit there for like an hour and a half in one clinic, which thankfully the doors are going open and closed a lot. So there is a lot of ventilation probably, but I was just sitting there kind of watching and thinking, is this a good place for them to be, for anybody to be spending 90 minutes?
Yeah, you're going to a pharmacy because you're sick, right? I mean, not always, but it's
right, not always. So, and you can't get a mail order because it costs money that way. So if you're on a fixed income and you're a retiree, then you really are incented to go to the clinic instead of somebody who is still working and maybe can spend the copay. Copays are not always $10, so it could be a proportion of the cost of your medication. Wow. So all of these process things were just driving me crazy. So I was thinking 40 minutes, for 40 minutes, you could do a yoga class for people outside. Yeah. You could do, calisthenics, you could do yoga. I said yoga, you could do burpees. So I was doing like sit-ups and things. I'm like, 100% somebody is going, what in the world are you doing? I was hoping so.
They should be doing what you're doing. You know what? The pharmacy, well, see, here's my thing. We've had this discussion before. I hate to be like this. Almost like the pharmacy wants people to be sick because they keep coming back and spending money. They don't want you to be healthy. They should be arranging like fitness classes or something. So.
Right. I was, an epidemiologist really never turns their brain off. And so sadly for me, I was standing also inside because once the number got close to mine, I certainly didn't want to miss it. So I did stand inside for a while, and I was looking around and just kind of assessing risk. COVID is very age sensitive as far as risk. So that's one. You can kind of tell, roughly how old people are. And then you just look at other health risks that they might have, like, maybe they have oxygen with them. I didn't actually see anybody, but sometimes you see someone with oxygen, or you see somebody who's actually carrying some more weight than they really should. And so you just start to think to yourself, gosh, there are so many things we could do to help people be healthier and not add to their stress. Waiting 90 minutes for your prescription can't possibly help with your stress. Okay. And the Wi-Fi in there is terrible. So you really can't do anything else. You really actually should bring a magazine, or you should bring a book. But to be honest with you, I didn't see anybody reading.
Wow. And it's odd with today's technology. What is it that people have to check in first to say that they're there and then wait another 50 minutes for them? Wow.
It is quite odd. So I've had so many lives, Tom, because I'm so old. I actually was involved so long ago in electronic medical record implementation. Right. So I'm aware of what was possible 15 years ago. I'm just like, this is frustrating. Yeah. So anyway, that's my rant, but a new place for burpees.
You'll find new places too. I had a huge honor on Veterans Day last Thursday, where I went down. I was by the Rangers, had me go down to the parade, the Veterans Day parade in Manhattan.
I saw your brief clip. Yes.
Yeah, I was with the Wounded Warrior Project. So obviously, everybody that's there is a wounded warrior, and it was it's great. I know you're patriotic, and I am as well. So it's great to be there. But you also felt sad, right? Because these people are dealing with all these different issues, PTSD or physical issues, people with wheelchairs, and again, they were fine. They were having fun. But I was more thinking, these poor people have to deal with this stuff 365 days a year, and here we are this one day honoring them. And even in the parade in Manhattan, it really was, I was anticipating this big turnout, and like 10 people deep along the sidewalks and everything, and really it was a sparse turnout, and people weren't like, I was hoping everybody's going to be cheering them on as they come through, and it was very subdued. And listen, I guess people have other things to do. It was during the day on Thursday. So it was, again, I don't want to say it was disappointing, because the people that were marching the parade seemed to have a ball, but it was just, I was hoping we'd have a better turnout and cheer them on. But
yeah, I hear you, Tom. I hear you. I saw your brief clip from there, and it just really touches me that you were there. And I'm sure that your spirit was part of them feeling really good about the occasion. But I agree.
They were a lot of fun, but yeah. Hey, speaking of COVID too, going back to when you're touching about the league and everything, we had in Ottawa with the Ottawa Senators, their next 3 games are canceled because they had such of a outbreak of COVID. So that's and that has a lot of things. I didn't realize this, but the NHL has agreed, and the Players Association have the players go over and participate in the Winter Olympics, the upcoming Winter Olympics. But I guess if there's some ruling that if they've ever had to cancel games in the NHL, now the NHL has the right to pull out of the Olympics. So there's some people are speculating that if it continues to get worse like this, that may happen, because the owner's looking at it and saying, well, at least here in the NHL, they can somewhat control it, their environment and everything. But if they go over to the Olympics, now all these athletes they're around other people from other countries and everything. And how are the other countries? Like, some other countries are worse than others. So just interesting to, we're not, it just seems like, it's all dying down, but it doesn't die down. It keeps on going, right?
Yeah, it's true. I wasn't actually really sure. The news article that I was reading didn't really give me much information. So I'm assuming they're all vaccinated. It's breakthrough COVID. Did anybody actually have any symptoms, or did they pick it up on routine screening, routine testing?
Yeah, so they're tested on a pretty regular basis, I think once a week. And then I think once they start to have problems with one team, they may be tested more often. But there's only one player in the NHL who's not got vaccinated. Really interesting. Probably the best player for the Detroit Red Wings is Tyler Bertuzzi. And when the season started off, I think there's about 10 guys that were not vaccinated. The rest of them all got vaccinated. He still has not. And he's a really popular player amongst the teams. So he can't go. The Red Wings are doing pretty well for a young team right now, but he can't go into Canada and play. So they play really well. And again, he's probably their best player. So they play really well. He's on the team, and then all of a sudden he can't go play. But it doesn't seem like it's a problem right now. I know if I was in the locker room, and again, I'm old school, so it's way back to 80s, but it's most like, come on, let's go get vaccinated. Everybody else has done it. You're hurting our team by not getting vaccinated. But I guess this is a unique situation too, that he's decided not to do it.
Well, what I think is interesting right now is there's, athletes who are speaking up and taking a different approach and are informed and are actually doing a pretty eloquent job of saying what they think. And I just wonder if the atmosphere is a little bit different now around independent thinking and being informed and taking charge of your own body.
Yes.
You don't really see that a lot, I don't think, in the popular press. But I think that the COVID mandates have kind of brought that conversation to the floor, the COVID vaccine mandates, I should say. And to be honest with you, I've been working on some research related to myocarditis in young men, and I've been working on that for months. And the conversation has actually gotten much more open and transparent about the risks. And I don't know if that's, what the concerns are among these athletes. And certainly we're still trying to understand, how risky the disease is compared to, vaccination. I'm a huge vaccine proponent. I really support vaccination. And I really think probably the logical thing is to prevent disease. But if my choice is 2 doses on a 21-day schedule and I'm a young athlete who's in peak condition, and I know it's going to, at best case scenario, possibly give me a little bit of like feeling of heaviness or possible arrhythmia or something like that, I'm going to feel a little bit off potentially. I'm not saying that happens, but potentially to a worst case scenario of actual myocarditis that could put me in the hospital in the ICU for a day or two. And, then activity restriction for 3 to 6 months. Whereas I'm seeing peers getting COVID and really not having any issues with it. It's like a cold. You put people in a really tough spot when you're forcing them to actually go and choose to get vaccinated. You're really forcing them to say, okay, I trust you and I'm just going to go get vaccinated. And that's the right choice for me because it's good for the team and good for everybody. But they may not actually be choosing to do it for themselves. Right. They may be doing it for the team and for logistics and all of that. And as a public health professional, I understand the push to do things for the common good, for the public good, population health and individual health. I understand that it's tough sometimes to marry those two things together. But still, fundamentally, I do respect an individual's right to informed consent and to understanding all of the personal risks and not, using a hammer to get people to agree to do things. So I think that we've just done a remarkably bad job of fully appraising risks based on unique individual circumstances. And back to, the hockey team or any hockey team that has had to skip games, if we're serial testing asymptomatic people, we are going to find COVID. We're going to find it in the nose. We're going to find, fragments. Think of them. I think you and I have talked about this before, like candy wrappers in a locker room, or, they don't eat candy in the locker room. Sock tape, or stick tape in the locker room. It's like it's remnants of a team or remnants of a virus having been in your system and defeated by your system because you're immune, whether by, natural immunity because of previous infection or because you have a good immune system and it's fully operational and it was able to knock it back at first exposure, or because you were vaccinated. There's lots of ways to beat the virus down in the upper airways. And I just think that, if we're finding COVID, we should not be surprised. I would love to have a conversation with, the NHL and the people who are making decisions about entirely knocking a team out for 3 games because we've found evidence that a virus was in the nose. Right. We don't necessarily know if that person's infectious.
Right. Have you been following the Aaron Rodgers case, the quarterback in Green Bay?
I have, actually. I was kind of interested in how he did. How did he do over the weekend?
He won. They beat Seattle, and he didn't play all that great. But so he, at the start of the year at a press conference, was asked if he'd been vaccinated, and he came out and said, "I have been immunized." Right. So I guess he had applied to the NFL to try to not get vaccinated, but to use this, I guess, a homeopathic method, getting yourself immunized.
I'd love to know what that is.
Yeah.
I mean, someone had COVID in my house and I shared the same air and.
Well, I guess somehow, Joe Rogan, the podcaster, he had gotten COVID, but he was really big at this. And I guess advised Aaron Rodgers on this. So I don't know exactly what the method is, but so the league said, no, that's not good enough. You need to get vaccinated. Or no, he didn't say they didn't say you need to get vaccinated. In the NFL, it is if you don't get vaccinated, you need to follow a different protocol, the mask and everything. So Rodgers technically never lied because he answered the question. He claims that if somebody had asked a follow-up question, like, okay, does that mean you are vaccinated? He would have told the truth. Now, he just didn't fully disclose what he's doing. So he kind of gave everybody an impression based on his answer and the way he conducted himself because he was going to press conferences without a mask on and everything. So finally he got COVID. And I don't know. Like part of it is like everybody was kind of like he was this terrible guy, because he lied. Well, first of all, I just look at it. There's so many people like politicians that are lying on a constant basis. This is a football player. I mean, I don't look, and I was once. I feel comfortable saying this. I'm not looking to athletes to be my moral compass.
Right.
I just they're not.
I mean, he didn't actually ever say he was vaccinated. He left it open to you to try to infer what you will from what he said, and it's on you if you actually believe he went and got 2 doses with that response. Clearly, he didn't. Right. Yeah, I think would be the reasonable assumption is he did something else that he considers being immunized.
Right. Yeah. But it kind of goes back to your thought about athletes being more able to think for themselves. There's still a little bit of that herd mentality, where they're all, doing the same thing, talking the same way, wearing the same clothes and everything. But there are more athletes out there now that are thinking for themselves. And he was that way. He just didn't handle it the right way. I kind of admire him that he thinks for himself. It's just, if you're
I would like to see more of that. I would like to see more and more athletes speak up and show what they're thinking and show their, process of thinking, because I just kind of wonder about, this is me. I've not actually thought this through before, Tom. I'm just having a conversation with you, but I do kind of wonder the more we look to athletes for, being health conscious, for taking good care of themselves. Obviously they're being paid a lot of money to perform. So that a lot of pressure goes into that. Sometimes those pressures, force a person in some ways to devolve into less healthy habits and coping mechanisms, right? Dealing with publicity and pressure. But, maybe the more we allow them to speak up and talk about, the choices that they're making to stay healthy, the more positive an experience it can be for the athletes, despite being in the public eye. And what good could that do for other young athletes out there to take care of themselves? And that includes their brains, their education, their post-performing life. You know what it's like to move from being a pro athlete into the post-pro life. It cannot be easy. And so I really do think that the more we see that, we should be encouraging that. We should be encouraging taking responsibility for one's own health. We may not always agree with the approach, but I think that people should be given as much agency as possible.
Well, Tom Brady's incredible, right? So here he's 40 some years old. And as a young person, he didn't really take care of himself as well as he certainly is now. Like he's famous for his diet, his exercise routine, and probably is playing as well as a player right now in his 40s that he did when he was in his 20s. So I agree with you. And if it should be a real example for other young athletes coming up and say, okay, and I've learned this too, if I want to get the best out of my body, I need to put the best in my body and treat my body the best, right? And like you said, too, the mental part of it as well. Like I know, and things have changed certainly now, but I know coming up for us, the thought of like having some kind of mental wellness, mental wellness came in a brown bottle, right? We started to drink more beer, then you'll be happy. That's the logic back then. So
yeah, and I have to tell you, Tom, I mean, I am only tiptoeing into this area. We've had conversations about, checking in youth hockey and my formative process of figuring out how I feel about this now that we're a travel hockey family here in the US. It's interesting, I'm bringing the tools of epidemiology to that as well, and just kind of thinking about the risks and, rewards of, the culture of hockey. And I'm not out there saying that it's all bad or anything's bad or, but I do think that there's a mindset that we are faced with, which is the mindset that you're coming from and how you grew up with. And some of the coaches are, around our age, right? And they're approaching coaching from the same sort of mindset that they grew up with hockey. And it's a rough sport, no doubt, but it's rough and glorious, even if you take checking out of it, because you guys are skating at what speed out there?
Yeah.
Like, how fast are you going, would you say?
I think they're in their 20s. Some of the guys that get going really fast are going to 20 miles an hour plus. I think that's where it's at. Yeah.
Yeah. And the puck can hit you at over 100 miles an hour. Yeah. So I mean, this is not a game that needs a lot more to make it a pretty, riveting and compelling game. You don't actually need physical injury. You don't need punching. You don't need people being crazy and, unhinged out there to make it an incredibly compelling game. So I do think that we need to see some mindset shift there.
Well, and my mindset has certainly shifted too, because if you had made that comment to me maybe 10 years ago, I would not have agreed with it at all. But I see now, even at the NHL level, they have changed the rules where, intimidation and fighting used to be part of the tactics of, playing the game. And that's gone now. There still is the odd fight, but it's really not, it's not relevant in the game anymore, really.
Yeah, you would have canceled me, right? There would be no more Alley on Tuesdays.
Right. If you're not for fighting, then you're not coming on. Yeah. Okay, so I should have showed you this video before I brought this up, but I just thought about it. So there's a video somebody posted on, I think it was Instagram, and it was a coaching video, and they were trying to help the kids prepare for if they ever got hit from behind into the boards and were sliding into the boards. So they're actually doing a drill in practice to simulate that, and they were having the players like slide into the boards, put their hands out, and then put their heads up. So I guess that the idea is that happens to you, so you're not going in head first.
Yeah,
cause more damage. And I get what they were trying to do. But I'm almost thinking like, okay, you don't prepare for a car crash by getting into a car crash, right? And like I know they were trying to, the video they showed, the players were under control. They were older players, so they're teaching them, and they're very like enthusiastic about it. And I made a comment. I saw it right away and reacted. I said, this is a ridiculous drill. I posted it online, and there's a lot of back and forth about it. But I guess my point is, it's great when you've got the right kids and they're under control. But a lot of times at practice, these young kids are having fun. They're wired up, and they're saying, okay, we're going to dive head first in the boards. They just don't fly into the boards head first, and you're going to get more injuries. So
no, you're right. I mean, how many times at practice have you, and you're now coaching, you said, right? A girls team?
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to actually yell clear instructions on the ice, right?
Yeah.
Like how much of the detail actually gets through when you have people kind of amped up and excited to do their thing. Right. So I would agree with you, like 2 or 3 people at a time, max, while everyone else is off doing another drill.
Right. Totally. I agree with you. That's a good point. You know what? That's the next point. Maybe one person at a time, the coach is monitoring that person, making sure they're not going too fast or whatever. Yeah, I'm cringing thinking, oh God, I can just imagine some young kid who's just so fired up. He's out there having fun. He's diving head first, and all the things you are trying to protect them from happening actually happen because you're having them do that.
But, to your point, though, like there's a safe way to train. And, I really actually do think that some of the injuries could be prevented if kids really knew how to handle their bodies and how to protect themselves. And that's been my one big concern moving into checking and travel hockey with no prior experience. I mean, there was some body contact before, but, this is a high rate of speed. This is a high level of play. And, you really have to, I think, teach people how to handle that in a slow roll, sort of build up, a controlled setting with someone you trust. Yeah. You can't just, even the checking practice and the checking instruction that I've seen has been a bit uncontrolled, a bit too much too soon. And you're putting kids who are comfortable checking out there, who are eager to check and eager to teach their buddies about checking. And they're doing it incorrectly. They're actually even boarding a newbie, which is not helpful.
Yeah, well, it's about hitting and being hit as well. It's the same thing as making a pass. There's two parts to the pass. There's the passer and the passee. The person who receives the pass, they have to be ready for it, create a target, all that. So when you go to get hit, so many times now you see kids, especially coming up, thinking the rules are going to protect them. So the puck's along the boards, and they're facing the boards with their head down, looking at the puck, and then somebody comes along, and they shouldn't be hit in that position, but they get hit. Because kids are just all wired up and everything, it's actually better for the play too. If the puck's on the boards, you should be turning your body facing the ice, because now you can see what's going on around you. Facing the boards, you can't see what's going on anyways. So those little kinds of things, I agree totally. You go from a place where you're not hitting at all. You feel like you're protected as a player, that the guys are not allowed to hit. All of a sudden there is hitting. People don't know what they're doing. They're excited. They finally get a chance to hit, and now they get hurt. So
Yeah, I was watching it, I've spent so many hours watching youth hockey, and then I come home and NHL is on. And so I spend a few minutes looking at the NHL, looking at the pros and how they do it. And I'm like, this is a lot less terrifying watching the NHL than it is youth hockey. I don't want to be in that situation as a parent, like ever again.
I know. Yeah, that's it. The energy game is much more controlled now. They've made the rules better. The players have adapted.
Yeah.
Even the style of players, like when I was drafted for a purpose. I was a big, strong defenseman. I was with the hit, all that kind of stuff. There's still some of those guys, but they're drafted more now for their skill, get the puck out of the zone instead of worried about defending the zone as much. So
interesting. My younger boy, who was a little bit worried about, he's not the biggest kid in the world. He's tall, but he's not big and bulky, and he's super nice. He got moved from forward to defense. And so I was thinking, being the overthinking analyst that I am, I'm like, you know what? I think he's actually been moved into a safer position relatively, because the defender, the defense, you correct me if I'm wrong, but defense kind of plans the hit on the forward who's coming. Right. The forward is having to respond and protect themselves and anticipate hits. The defender is the one who might actually do it. So I don't know, maybe it's statistically better to be a defenseman.
Well, yeah, because you're in control of the situation of the
Yeah.
contact. Now, there's sometimes when the puck's dumped into your zone, you're going back to get it, and the forward comes in and hits the player from behind, hopefully not from behind, but into the boards. But a lot of defensive play now, like if you're going for that big hit now, like there's a percentage of that you don't make the hit, you miss the hit. Now you create an opportunity for the other team. They're teaching much more now about angles. So instead of like trying to have a hit, like a head-on hit, it's more turning and forcing the player down the boards. So there really isn't that big contact. And you really increase
so much smarter pushing them out to the board.
Yeah.
So much smarter.
As your defenseman, you don't run that risk of missing the player because you're riding him off of the boards.
Right, 100%. Yeah, I can see that because I'm a terrible hockey player, terrible. So if I remember, I was a goalie in a parent and kid game once. I had dreams of grandeur, such dreams of grandeur. I was in goalie Euro, much too big for myself, but I still wanted to come way out and totally mess up a one-on-one situation. So I did. I came like way out, and I did. I messed it up, but they had plenty of time to recover because I was stuck like on my back. I couldn't get up. So they had like 3 minutes to recover and score on an empty net while I was trying to. But you can definitely see that it's much smarter to push somebody out and stay with them than it is to try to. But a poke check, I do like to see a good poke check.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like there's so many ways you don't have to hit people now.
Yeah.
It's like it's using your smarts and your angles. There's this great young player, this Fox for the Rangers, won the Norris Trophy last year, as the best defenseman in the NHL. And
Really?
He's a smaller guy, but he's so smart out there with the puck and without the puck. So that's more the game now, And again, no disrespect. And you know how I feel about coaches. Coaches are fantastic people. They're giving their time. They're making a difference in kids' lives and everything. But not every one of those coaches is that educated about the game to teach those smart things. Again, the angles and being smart with the stick play and everything. So stuff. We had an incident up here in Brewster, New York. Actually, a friend of mine who's been a longtime coach. He's coached for about 28 years, and he's a former Marine, at least in the Army. So he's a hard guy, and he's been very successful as coach. And a lot of parents and players wanted to go play for him because he was that hard guy, like hard and pushing you to get better. I guess he had an incident where he had some physical contact with a young player in a practice. Stuff that's happened a lot where it was more like apparently they have the video cameras in all the rinks now and everything. The boy, it was a play that happened so many times that he was going the wrong way around this coach and more having fun. He kind of pushed him and knocked him down. The player jumped up right away and was fined, but it then through a series of events became a big thing, big investigation. He now no longer could coach, and that's his career. I mean, listen, the first thing is a child, all right? And apparently there was again, the video shows that the boy jumped up right away and got back in line, so it wasn't an issue. But I guess just a reminder to everybody that's coaching that times have changed, right? That a lot of things, we can't be, hitting. And again, I don't want to paint the picture.
Right. Yeah.
Physical contact with an athlete when you're coaching. And so.
No, it's really hard. It's an emotional game too, So I really appreciate the challenges, and I have the greatest respect for coaches. I tell our coach, Bob, of course.
Yeah, he's good. Bob Pizzini. Yeah, we've had him on.
Yeah. I just tell him all the time, thank you for holding the community standard that you do, for, requiring the kids to be there for video review, for doing their own water bottles, for being on time. He has a list of 10 commandments, and, I just really appreciate coaches who show leadership and follow through on consequences and reinforce, high expectations. I mean, this hockey is as much off the ice as it is on the ice. And I just admire the coaches so much. They invest so much time in practice planning. And even a reminder to the high schoolers or the parents out there listening, like it really matters if your child comes to practice or not, because the drills are created with, X number of people in mind. And I've kind of seen firsthand where it's like, oh gosh, so-and-so isn't here. So, I mean, I used to be very much, keep your kid home last year. If they have any symptoms at all, keep them home. I still feel that way, but we're coming kind of back to normal.
Right.
And, people are tired. People are exhausted because we're living both the COVID life and the post-COVID life. Some of us are living both lives at once. And so we're, I think, exhausted from both sides, the worry and continuing on. And it's just, people are tired. So I totally get it.
Yeah. You brought up a good point about showing up at practice, and I try to use myself as a good example. And I really mean this. I'm not humble. So when I say that, I don't mean to be humble when I am, but I was never the best player on any team I played on. And I really looked back at my life more now in the process of doing the book, which hopefully will be out before Christmas. But it really showed, like, I had to look back and, geez, how did I make it? It was just showing up every day. It started with my father and grandfather on the farm, showing up to milk the cows every day. That's just the life that I knew. That's all I knew about, was just showing up all the time. And that's really how I had any success. So, even like all the youth parents out there that, the kids that say maybe, oh, you know what, he's tired, I've been doing a lot. He doesn't have to go to practice today. Well, get him to practice, and it's not about them necessarily becoming a better football player or hockey player or whatever. It's about being a better person and realizing, okay, if I'm going to be successful in life or in a relationship or whatever, be consistent, show up and be there all the time like you're supposed to be there. So,
and just mood management. You and I have talked about when you go out onto the ice, you go into a rink, no matter what's going on outside, you step into that cold air and you step on the ice and you just start moving, and it's a different world. You really do leave your troubles behind. Because you have to be so focused. I ride horses and I've practiced martial arts, and I've got to skate over the weekend for the first time in 7 years. And that there's some sports that are so all consuming that you cannot think of anything else in your life that's troubling you, right? And so when you're out there on the ice, I'm sure that that's really good for mental health too, and physical.
That's a great point. So on Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, actually, this past Sunday, the Rangers had this group of kids on Madison Square Garden ice. So the Rangers played at night. The kids got to go on the ice for a practice with the coaches. I went out there with them, and it was just a blast. There's one little kid, cute little guy, but he wouldn't listen to anything. But he wasn't being like a bad kid. It's just that he was out there having fun. And they've got those like little foam dividers that divide.
Yeah.
So he was jumping on those things, and I was spinning around on it. I got caught up in it too. Like, screw it, let's just have some fun, And it was good. But you're right. It was like nothing else is going on in your mind. You're just concentrating on the kids out there having fun, and it was good.
It's so important. It's just really, really important to try to maintain that for the kids, if possible.
Is. Well, good to see you again. So no more absences are allowed for you. Consistency, as we said.
Yes.
Every Tuesday, it will give you some leniency. There's a 12 o'clock to 12:30 range there, but other than that, there's no more missing. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes. Right. And you do your burpees, and I will work on my pull-ups. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Really quick, we got to go, but really quick, where are we at in the pull-ups?
We're at 1.
Okay. And the boys are at.
Boys are at. I have to check with them. They'll do them when they get home. We'll have
Sam's a big man. He's pulling up a lot of weight there. He's a big kid now. So
yeah, he's very strong. So Tom, I have a challenge for you. Do burpees in an unexpected place and see if anybody asks you what you're doing.
Okay, 10. Should I get a video too? Maybe we're going to Costco. If I go to Costco and do
in Costco, I don't know about in. I usually try to do it outside.
Oh, okay. All right. So
a parking lot. Okay. In a safe place. Don't be run over. Don't wear your black shirt. Right,
so in a parking lot, I'll do it in a Costco parking lot. And I don't know if I ever told you, but my boys are smaller. I used to take them into Costco, and I would jump into so they got the coolers with the glass doors. So I would get into the cooler with the glass doors, and I was pretending I was locked in. I started banging on the door. My boys were just mortified. It was classic. So really proud of myself. Yep.
Yes. Well, now you have something new inspiring parking lot workouts.
I'm trying to think. Okay, I'll find some places good. I'll get it filmed too. All right, perfect. All right, good to see you again. We'll see you next week. See you, everybody.